Not too long ago, in the preliminary stages of the 2025 NBA draft, and that's just a part of the process where they're doing the draft combine, where they're working certain players out, and where they're interviewing the players. During that process, we had some big time controversy around one of the biggest prospects in the 2025 NBA draft class, which is Ace Bailey. And we've seen Ace Bailey attempt to do something that we rarely see from prospects in NBA history, and that's influence where they go in the NBA draft. And just to give you guys a quick example off the top of my mind, in 1999, Steve Francis refused to play to the team that he was drafted to at the number 2 overall pick, the Vancouver Grizzlies, and he was traded to the Houston Rockets. And this year we seen Ace Bailey and his former manager Omar Cooper, they did their own version, their own tactics of trying to get Ace Bailey to go where he wanted to go in the NBA draft. And one of the biggest tactics that we saw that raised all the controversy around Ace Bailey and his team at the time was that Ace Bailey, he refused to work out for any of the teams that were selecting in the top 5. And the teams that were selecting in chronological order: the Dallas Mavericks, the San Antonio Spurs, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Charlotte Hornets, and then the Utah Jazz. So Ace Bailey, he was refusing to work out for these teams, and this was what derailed his draft stock. This is what caused his draft stock to fall, and it's rare that a player, does that on his own. He intentionally did that because remember, we said Ace Bailey coming out of college before the preliminary process of the NBA draft started, he was seen as nothing less of a top 3 pick in the NBA draft. So we look at who is selecting next in the NBA draft. You have the Washington Wizards, you have the New Orleans Pelicans, and then you have the Brooklyn Nets. Now, another report, and nothing was actually confirmed because Ace Bailey, he kind of always avoided the questions on why he was doing this, but it was reported that, he wanted to go somewhere where he could automatically come straight in and be the number 1 option on the team and the featured player on the team. Basically, Ace Bailey, he wanted to be the number 1 overall pick while being selected at a different number in the NBA draft. They was making it seem like he wanted the Kings to the kingdom. And while it's a crazy plan, it seems like it was going to work for Ace Bailey because we look at the way the NBA draft transpired and we look at the type of talent that Ace Bailey is. Now, everybody's mock draft was the same. They had Cooper Flag at number 1, Dylan Harper, who is Ace Bailey's teammate, at number 2, and then they had Ace Bailey going at number 3. That was the mock draft for a very long time before the preliminary process of the NBA draft. So we get to draft night and the mock draft is looking correct. You have Cooper Flag, you have Dylan Harper. They go to the Mavericks and to the San Antonio Spurs, and then we get to the number 3 overall pick to where a team like the Philadelphia 76ers. Of course, they could use a player like Ace Bailey, the type of talent that he is, with the type of upside that he is. And who do they choose on draft night? They choose VJ Edgecombe out of the University of Baylor. So we get to the number 4 overall pick, and we get to the Charlotte Hornets, a team that has been desperate to get their organization better over the last handful of years. Who do they get? They get Knupu, a sharpshooter, instead of getting somebody that can alter the franchise like Ace Bailey. So we're at the number 3 and the number 4 overall pick, and it seems like the Charlotte Hornets and the Philadelphia 76ers, they were actually scared off by what Ace Bailey and his team at the time were doing. And so now we get to this 5th overall pick, and the Utah Jazz are on the clock. And what does the Utah Jazz do? They shock everyone. They shocked the hell out of Ace Bailey. We know his picture on draft night, it went viral because he thought his plan actually worked, getting those teams not to draft him. And then the Utah Jazz, they had the confidence, they had the belief in their organization that we can bring this talent in, we can get him to believe in our organization, we can get him to believe in himself even more, so that he is the guy for this franchise. And they select Ace Bailey with the 5th overall pick. And I think this easily gives the Utah draft the biggest steal of this year's NBA draft, because when you look at what they did, they stole Ace Bailey in 2 phases. They stole Ace Bailey from the Charlotte Hornets and the Philadelphia 76ers because they were too afraid to draft him, or unless they really looked at him and said, okay, we believe Kanupu and we believe that VJ Edgecombe is better than Ace Bailey, but we all know what it was. But I'm just giving them, just in case, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, just in case they did believe in those guys more than Ace Bailey. But 9 times out of 10, we know what the real reason is. So they steal him from those 2 teams, and then they steal him for the team where, Ace Bailey and his team were trying to get him, selected to. And it was reported that he would have been fine going to the Washington Wizards or going to the New Orleans Pelicans, even though they have Zion Williamson there, or going to the Brooklyn Nets. But the Utah Jazz, they puffed out their chest and they got themselves a hell of a player in this year's draft. Based on what I've seen during the summer league and then the first couple of games of the preseason, they got themselves one hell of a basketball player, and more importantly, it seems like they've gotten on the same page with Ace Bailey, which was the riskiest part of selecting him. Is if you look back, or we look back at that example that we brought up, even though that the Vancouver Grizzlies did draft Steve Francis, he still refused to play for the team. And that's definitely a risk that the Utah Jazz had to consider, but their confidence paid off because it seems like Ace Bailey, he's brought in to the organization. I'm not a man on the inside. I don't know what's going on behind the closed doors of the organization of the Utah Jazz. So I'm just looking at it from, what we can see from the outside looking in. And it really does look like Ace Bailey and the Utah Jazz, they are going to be on the same page going forward. Just looking at what we do know, we see Ace Bailey, he no longer works with his old manager Omar Cooper, who was reportedly he was a huge orchestrator of the plan that was put together during those preliminary stages of the NBA draft. Ace Bailey also, when they pulled this stunt, they said that if they was drafted to any of those teams that they wasn't going to report. But Ace Bailey, he never did not report to the Utah Jazz. He reported immediately, when he was supposed to, after he got drafted. And then just listening to what Coach Will Hardy has had to say about Ace Bailey, he said he's really going to take developing, and I'm paraphrasing here, he's going to take developing him seriously, and he's already been studying other scoring wings in the younger stages of their NBA career, like Kevin Durant and like Jason Tatum. So all of these point to Ace Bailey and the Utah Jazz being on the same page, and then also looking at his performances in the summer league, and then the ones more recent, his 2 games in the preseason have been very phenomenal to me, and he looked really, really good. And I'll be honest with you guys, I don't watch much high school or college basketball. Of course, you naturally hear about the bigger names and the bigger players, but I'm just more naturally drawn to the NBA. So over these, since the NBA draft has started, I've been able to see the highlights on Ace Bailey, and I definitely see why he was projected to be a top 3 pick in the draft. But what I've seen from him in his 2 preseason games, he looks like a very, very natural scorer. Like, he has a great feel for the game, and so far, we haven't really seen him show off too much of his game. From what I've seen in those 2 preseason games, which I was very impressed with, I thought they were some very mature buckets. A lot of them was coming off the basketball, working with Yusuf Nurkic. Yusuf Nurkic has always been really good at that dribble handoff and using that big frame of his to set those screens. But he got a lot of easy buckets just working with Yusuf Nurkic, cutting to the rim, hitting spot up jump shots, and then his off the dribble scoring in these 2 preseason games, just using one dribble to get to his spots. That mid-range game and his pull-up, that looks like something off of 2K. His release point is extremely high, and that's another thing that makes him such a talented scorer, a talented prospect. He has elite size and elite athleticism. Now, Ace Bailey, he stands at 6'8", and he possesses that 7-foot wingspan. And if you look at that release point on all his jump shots, off the catch, off the dribble, they are extremely high. So we look at Ace Bailey as a basketball prospect. That's the best part of his game, is his elite shot making ability. He is so comfortable from making a jump shot wide open or contested on any spot of the basketball court, from the 3-point line, fading away, pulling up off the dribble, turnaround jump shots. He is an elite shot maker. And he also has promise and potential on the defensive side of the ball, standing at 6'8" with that 7-foot wingspan, the athleticism that he possesses, the ability to jump that he possesses. He averaged 1.4 blocks playing at Rutgers at the collegiate level, so he can engage on the defensive side of the ball. He can play on-ball defense as well. So all of this really allows him to be, coming into his rookie season, being at the minimum a very versatile player on both the offensive and the defensive side of the ball. And he's not a complete player at all right now, but that's what makes him so special, that he looks as good as he did in these 2 preseason games, and he has so much room to grow in some of those areas that Ace Bailey, that he has to work on, getting better at his ball handler. Not saying that he's a bad ball handler right now, but it's just an area to improve if you want to be that player that he's projected to be. And then also just getting downhill more, because he is so athletic. He does finish well around the rim, but he's just so goddamn good at shooting the basketball. His form is so smooth. I understand, why he's taking so much jump shots, but just making that habit of getting downhill more and attacking around the rim, because he does have tremendous size, length, and athleticism. So, Ace Bailey, I understand why the Utah Jazz, why they took this risk to draft this player, because he can become a guy that comes in and turn around the franchise. So, I know it's just the preseason, but it's what we got to go off of right now. And he did some very efficient scoring that I thought was very impressive. And I thought his shot selection was impressive. And I just thought he didn't use that many dribbles, and he scored a bunch of points. Only that, the best scorers in the NBA do that, score the basketball at an efficient level without dribbling the basketball too much. And then the Utah Jazz, they got some players to work with. They got some guys to where Ace Bailey should come in. He should come in and look for that opportunity that it seems like he was hungry for, being, that default number 1 guy. But he does have Lauri Markkanen on the team, who is the number 1 option, deservingly so, of the Utah Jazz right now. But I still think after that, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for Ace Bailey. And then there's other intricate parts on this team when we look at Walker Kessler, the shot blocker and rebounder that he is. We already mentioned Lauri Markkanen. We have the point guard Isaiah Collier. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. He is a floor general, a table sitting point guard. You have another combo guard who can play make and score the basketball, and Keontae George. And the Utah Jazz, they have some nice pieces that I think are going to fit well around Ace Bailey. So I think this was a big time pickup for the Utah Jazz. I think their risk is going to pay off, because just looking at Ace Bailey, like they said in his draft profile, he really does just look like a natural scorer, and he has such a great feel for the basketball court. But that's something I wanted to bring up to you guys today. That whole process was actually, pretty crazy. I just, read about it in depth, and that was a pretty intriguing situation. So shout out to the Utah Jazz for standing up tall and going out and getting the player that they wanted. And then if you guys enjoyed, please subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.